Canucks need an elite player to turn our franchise around, to finish this rebuild. They need an elite centerman. They just need another franchise player. They need Elias Pettersson! So the 2023 NHL Draft Lottery reveal is in a couple of days, and the highest prize of the eventual boy auction is for a 17-year-old from North Vancouver who has, allegedly, yet to taste a chicken McNugget. Connor Bedard is a sensational hockey player who has been projected to go first overall in the 2023 NHL Draft for quite some time, considering the fact that he was over 3 points per game in this year's World Junior Championships. That checks out. Understandably, the prospect of this type of player has many NHL owners excited, especially if they're unable to pay rent on their arena. A generational player doesn't pop up every day. Well, obviously. So it makes sense for this excitement surrounding this high school senior. This excitement prompted many teams in the NHL to tank, which, if you don't know, is basically trying their hardest not to win, but to lose. Like, usually the opposite of what you're supposed to do in professional sports. Now, I'm not saying outright tanking is bad, and this certainly isn't the first time teams have done it. Edmonton was doing this for over half a decade with about a 50% rate of success. This tends to happen a lot when these generational players are up for auction. I mean draft contention, where teams that hope to improve their franchise, or just not fold entirely, do poorly in the standings in the hopes that the teenager they select can turn their franchise around. This, hope that they can turn the franchise around isn't exclusive to first overall picks, but there's always more scrutiny towards players that are selected first overall and in the first round in general, and if they don't become world beaters immediately, they risk being chased around with the word bust for the rest of their career. Now, where do the Canucks fit into all of this, you may ask? Well, unless you were living under a rock, you may not have heard about the nightmare that was the 2022-23 Canucks season. The team started the year 0-7, their starter goalie was unfortunately injured for most of the season, they fired head coach Bruce Boudreau 13 months after he was hired, and we knew about that a week before it actually happened. They traded captain Bo Horvat, and the team missed the playoffs for the 8th time in the last 10 years. Just a short list of events. Many Canucks fans joined the cult, side of the fan base, that declared themselves Team Tank in the hopes the Canucks would purposefully do bad so the team had a better chance at Bedard. Whenever the team decided to win a game, this side of the fan base would be distraught, saying the players were ruining the tank, because I bet the first thing on Andrei Kuzmenko's mind after scoring a goal was,
"Ну точно, бедолага."
And while the NHL's version of Emperor Palpatine may not think teams were purposefully tanking to get this once-in-a-generation player, Canucks team president Jim Rutherford came out and said he thought the team was tanking 6 days before he announced that he should zip it and would stop appearing in front of the media. Even after hiring Rick Tocchet as the head coach Patrick and Jim always wanted, the team was still not stellar. When Demko returned and was back to his previous status as one of the best in the West, that's when the Canucks decided to play meaningful games in March. Because they were so far out of a playoff spot, Doug McCallum's SkyTrain Stadium seemed like a closer reality. And if you don't know who Doug McCallum is, I am jealous of you. In the 17 games he played between February 27th and the end of the season on April 13th, Demko posted a .918 save percentage and an 11-4-2 record, with the Canucks overall going 15-6-2 in that time frame. Up until that point of the season, the team was 23-31-5, only slightly better than the Anaheim Ducks at the time, who had a record of 18-34-7. The Ducks ended the season 32nd in the league, with the highest chance of winning Connor Bedard, the first overall pick in the draft lottery, which will be Connor Bedard. Now, when the Canucks started doing well again, many of these self-declared tankists were angry as the team was effectively playing itself out of the draft lottery. The Canucks ended the season 22nd in the league with a 3% chance of drafting first overall. They have the highest probability on drafting 11th overall, and for a season that was mostly filled with misery and drama, a lot of fans aren't necessarily happy with that consolation prize. Yes, 11th overall has some historically, decent players like Jerome McGinley, Anze Kopitar, Kevin Fiala, and Jack Campbell. But a lot of fans wanted a better chance at drafting the hometown boy than, Washington, who have double the percentage of us, because the Capitals definitely haven't lucked out in the past with first overall. Definitely. Here's a reminder to those who are still seething in a corner about our hockey team winning hockey games like they're supposed to. The Canucks, not only were they too good to fail, they don't need Bedard. I'm sure that once he settles in Columbus, out of the Pacific, please and thank you, there will be jokes similar to the ones made about Connor McDavid going to the Leafs, or Austin Matthews going to the Coyotes, or Pierre-Luc Dubois going to the Habs. That one's real. The Canucks are too good to be less than mid, I'm sorry. When you have Elias Pettersson hitting 102 points, a point per game JT Miller, Andrei Kuzmenko earning the highest seasonal shooting percentage in franchise history, and Quinn Hughes becoming the fastest defenseman in NHL history to record 200 assists, there was no way to be in the same standing as an Anaheim or a Chicago. When all Anaheim has is Troy Terry and the guy Torts hates, and all Chicago has is no remorse and Seth Jones' contract, and maybe Patrick Kane's spare hip lying around, they obviously forgot to send it to New York. And yes, I understand having good players does not necessarily mean you will be free from the burden of being a bad team. A President's Trophy can barely get you past the first round these days. I wonder if they practiced holding it. But Connor Bedard will not fix this chaotic mess of a hockey team. Also, what is the plan of action for getting him in the lineup? Second line center Elias Pettersson, paying our third line center $8 million for 7 years? Yeah, that makes sense. One 17-year-old will not fix this team. One high school senior will not get us into the playoffs. Hell, it took the Toronto Maple Leafs 7 years of Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews in order to reach the second round. Whatever teenager we draft will be scrutinized for not being a world beater because the team couldn't fail the way a portion of the fan base wanted them to, putting even more pressure on top of being drafted into the NHL. The only ways the Canucks get Connor Bedard is if this 3% works wonders for us, or he pulls an Adam Fox and just refuses to play for anyone else. Other than that, Team Tank is going to have to cope with what we have, which, need I remind you, is still pretty damn good. Bye, everybody.